Hi guys, welcome to the Liz Wheeler Show. Before we get started today, just a little housekeeping to take care of. A lot of you asked me over the weekend when we were talking online what my thoughts were on Andrew Tate and the arrest of Andrew Tate, what he's been charged with. So we discussed Andrew Tate on the show yesterday. If you missed it, we talked about the reality of why Andrew Tate is a very, very bad person and why young men should stay as far away from Andrew Tate as possible. You can find yesterday's show. Just go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, YouTube, or Rumble and watch yesterday's show. If you haven't already subscribed to the show, please do so on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, on YouTube and Rumble. Greatly appreciate everybody who's been subscribing. So what are we going to talk about today? Actually, I want to start today's show with a little addendum to something we talked about yesterday. We briefly talked about the new sculpture in Boston, the new MLK sculpture, the hideous modern art rendition of what was supposed to be Martin Luther King Jr. embracing Coretta Scott King. It turned into this headless, bodiless, just house of horrors, this terrible thing that's now sitting in the middle of Boston. But that's not what we're going to talk about. The addendum that I want to add is after the show yesterday, I was reminded of the FBI's role in Martin Luther King's death, or at least the lead up to his death. And there's a tie-in there that I want to discuss to the Biden classified document scandal. I know yesterday I said that we would talk about the Biden classified document scandal today, and we're going to, because there's this question that a lot of people on the right are asking, and that is the Biden classified document scandal the way that the Democrats or the left, the ruling class, is this the way that they're trying to take out Biden, to get rid of the guy before 2024 because he's old and they don't want him to run again? They have a new candidate, maybe Gavin Newsom or somebody that they want to run instead. And I'm a little bit of a contrarian here. I think no, not at all. I don't think that the Democrats and the left are trying to take out Biden with this classified document scandal. And I want to walk you through my analysis because I think it's pretty good. I think you might agree when you hear my take on this. The short answer here is that there's major political incest that is going on behind the scenes. And I'm talking about Davos, the World Economic Forum, Hunter Biden, the FBI. And so I want to untangle this together today. So let's get to it. All right, let me tell you why I like American Hartford Gold. Is it only me, or does it feel that the future is getting more insecure and uncertain? At every turn, we're getting less for more, while record high inflation, soaring interest rates, and the looming recession are threatening businesses, our jobs, and our retirement funds. Even Fed Chair Powell warned us to brace for more pain. What does that mean? Fortunately, there is a way to secure your hard-earned nest egg. You can do what I did. Call the only precious metals dealer that I trust, American Hartford Gold. They make it simple and easy to protect your savings and your retirement accounts with physical gold and silver. With one short phone call, they can have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside your IRA or 401k. And if you call them right now, they will give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. So don't wait. Call them right now. Call 866-781-7499. That's 866-781-7499, or text Liz to 65532. Again, that's 866-781-7499, or text LIZ to 65532. Okay, so after the show yesterday, when we talked about Martin Luther King Jr. and that hideous new statue, monument, sculpture, whatever you want to call it, that's in Boston, the headless, bodiless embrace between MLK and his wife. After the show, I was reminded of the FBI's harassment of MLK, how they wiretapped his home, how they essentially just harassed him. They put this dragnet around him, tried to make his life miserable. It's really dark stuff, what the FBI did to MLK. There's this rumor, I don't know if this is true, I don't know if this is tall tales, but there's this rumor that James Comey, who I consider to be one of the most corrupt FBI directors in the history of the FBI, which is saying something given the fact that the FBI has been corrupt since its inception, since the first FBI director. There's a rumor that James Comey keeps or kept, when he was the director of the FBI, kept a copy of the wiretap order for the FBI to spy on MLK on his desk as a reminder, so the rumor has it, that of what the FBI could do wrong. Now, there's obviously tremendous irony if this rumor is true, because James Comey was perhaps single-handedly most responsible for signing off on the orders to spy on President Trump and people in his orbit. You know the story. Tremendous irony here. But DC Drano posted the graphic of the letter that undercover FBI agents sent to MLK in 1964. This was discovered a couple years ago because there was a letter that FBI agents who were posing as just haters of MLK. So let me rephrase this. This letter was sent to MLK in 1964. It wasn't signed by the FBI. He wasn't supposed to know it was the FBI. It was sent under the guise of it being someone who really disliked him, maybe a fellow black man who called him a fraud, thought what he was doing was wrong. MLK himself suspected that this was from the FBI because there were significant threats in this. It was psychological warfare. But this letter had been redacted. We hadn't been able to see everything that was in this letter for a long time until a professor found the unredacted version in the National Archives and released it publicly. So now we do. And DC Drano posted this, reminded me of it. And I want to read just a couple lines from this just to remind everyone, as I was reminded, exactly what the FBI is capable of. So it starts by saying, King, in view of your low-grade, abnormal personal behavior, I will not dignify your name with either a Mr. or a Reverend or a Doctor. And your last name calls to mind only the type of king, such as King Henry VIII and his countless acts of adultery and immoral conduct lower than that of a beast. Which I think we can all agree is perhaps the most dehumanizing thing until the following paragraphs. This is an outright threat. The letter says, you are finished. You are finished. It concludes by saying, King, there is only one thing left for you to do. It's a threat, by the way. This whole letter is a threat of exposure of Martin Luther King Jr.'s extramarital affairs. And it says, King, there's only one thing left for you to do. You know what it is. You have just 34 days in which to do. This exact number has been selected for a specific reason. You are done. There is but one way out for you. You better take it before your filthy, abnormal, fraudulent self is bared to the nation. So this is like a hideous letter, right? It was written by FBI agent William Sullivan, and Martin Luther King Jr.'s wife opened it. Like I said, MLK at the time suspected that it was written by the FBI, but it's threatening him, telling him to commit suicide or else all of his extramarital affairs, the FBI threatened him, would be exposed publicly. This is dark stuff. To tell someone that you have 34 days to commit suicide, otherwise the FBI, who through their spying and their wiretaps, including collecting wiretaps of his affairs, recording him having sex, they threatened to release that after they'd taped it if he didn't kill himself. This was during the J. Edgar Hoover FBI. This is just a reminder that the FBI has been corrupt since its very inception. The FBI has weaponized the power of the federal government against private citizens for their own political agenda since the beginning. This is the legacy of the FBI. This whole idea that some politicians, even Republicans, who say, listen, the FBI serves a good and moral and proper and necessary function. There are a few bad apples here and there, but we just have to weed them out and we'll be fine. No. The FBI was conceived in corruption. This is just another example of the reason why we need to farm out the necessary function of the FBI and raise the rest to abolish the FBI. And if that's not reason enough, there was a guest list to the Davos gathering. That's the World Economic Forum's annual gathering. Rich people, powerful people, politicians from all over the world take their private jets into Davos. These are the people that tell us that we should be eating bugs instead of meat, that we should not own private vehicles, gas-powered vehicles, that we should abolish fossil fuels and all their uses, including in textiles, in medications, in energy to heat our homes and cool our homes. the people that are after your gas stove now, these same people take their private jets with their enormous carbon footprint and they all gather in their little conference in Davos and conspire how to control us, conspire how to control the world, all while violating the very tenets of what they talk about. The private jet hypocrisy, I'm literally never gonna get past, ever. Ever, ever, ever. How dare you tell me that we shouldn't be allowed to even fly commercially when you are taking a private jet? So the point of this is that a lot of powerful people from all around the world attend Davos, but wouldn't we like to know who exactly was in attendance? Well, Jordan Schachtel over at the Dossier obtained the guest list, the people who are going to be attending Davos, both business leaders, powerful people, and public figures. So the powerful people and business owners, we're talking about like the CEO of Amazon, of course he's gonna be there, of BlackRock, of Pfizer, Jeff Bezos and Albert Bourla and Larry Fink. These people have attended Davos before. Terrible, not surprising that they're going to be attending again. We're talking about people from the Gates Foundation and the publisher of the New York Times, exactly the type of leftist swampy creatures that you would expect to be part of the globalist ruling class. But interestingly, Jordan Schachtel obtained the guest list when it comes to political figures. So I looked through this list, I trolled through this list. Here are some of the people from the United States government who are attending Davos. And remember, we'll recap Klaus Schwab in just a second, what the World Economic Forum stands for, what their goal is at this Davos conference. Some of the attendees from the United States include John Kerry, the climate envoy, real surprise there, the Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh, Samantha Power of the Obama administration and Russiagate fame, as well as Benghazi. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer is going to be there. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, Senator Joe Manchin, Senator Kyrsten Sinema, Senator Chris Coons. Now, these are all Democrats, so shocking, yes. Surprising, not particularly. But then we have on this guest list some Republicans. Some Republicans, members of Congress, Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar, a Republican from Florida, no less, Congressman Darrell Issa from California, Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia. I would be very interested in why Governor Kemp feels it's appropriate to go to Davos, what he's doing there, what his intention are. Here's the interesting part. One of the interesting parts. There's two interesting parts. The first interesting part is there's two Republicans on this list, this initial guest list, Senator James Risch of Idaho, a Republican senator, and Congressman Mike Gallagher, a Republican from Wisconsin, whose names were on this attendee list, but after Jordan Schachtel published this attendee list on the Dossier, these two, Senator Risch and Congressman Gallagher, withdrew their attendance. Davos is no longer on their calendars. They do not plan to attend this. Perhaps because it's been publicized and exposed that they were going to attend. This is exactly why we need good journalists like Jordan, because this is really important. But that's just a little sidebar. That's interesting, certainly interesting, but that is not the point of why I brought this up. I brought this up because two attendees from the United States government are Avril Haines. Who is Avril Haines? Avril Haines is the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, and FBI Director Chris Wray. The director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the United States of America is attending Davos, hosted by the World Economic Forum. Remember, the goal of the World Economic Forum, the goal of this Davos gathering is to recruit people in positions of power, whether that be in charge of businesses like Amazon, investment firms like BlackRock, or in charge of governments and law enforcement apparatuses like the FBI director, to recruit these people to Klaus Schwab's ideology. Klaus Schwab's ideology, which he dubs the Great Reset. Those are his words, by the way. Always remember, that's not what we named Klaus Schwab's ideology. That's what he described his ideology as. Klaus Schwab's ideology, the Great Reset, is the short form. The best way to describe it is that he supports Chinese communist capitalism. And I know that that's inherently contradictory, but Chinese communist capitalism is different than outright socialism and outright Marxism because technically businesses are not owned and operated by the state. The state does not own the means of production and distribution, nor is there this collectivism that would would fall under the helm of being outright communism. No, the state, meaning the Chinese Communist Party in China, doesn't own the entities, they just control the entities. So if the private entities are not in alignment with when I'm talking about behaviorally and values, their owners, their employees are not in alignment with the Chinese Communist Party, then the Chinese Communist Party punishes the business or disappears the owners of those businesses. And the way that the Chinese Communist Party controls the individuals, controls the businesses, is through a social credit score system. There's two kinds of social credit score systems in China. The first kind is a corporate social credit score system, and the second kind is an individual social credit score system, which both are self-explanatory. One is about the business and how it's behaving, and the other is about the individual and how it's behaving. Klaus Schwab, part of his Great Reset philosophy is ESG, the environmental, social, and governance metrics that you and I talk about all the time, which is a social credit score system for businesses. If they want to acquire capital, if they want access to the marketplace, they have to score a certain amount of points on these ESG metrics that were invented by Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum. Keep in mind, Klaus Schwab, at his desk, there is a statue on the shelf behind his desk that you can see over his shoulder in videos when he's doing interviews at his desk of Vladimir Lenin. Klaus Schwab is a very, very bad man. Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum supports a surveillance state. So why is the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, going to the World Economic Forum's Davos gathering, which the purpose of which is to further Klaus Schwab's Great Reset ideology? Now, I like for patriots, and I think you will too, because a food shortage could be coming even in the United States. This is what experts wrote as recently as July. Drought, inflation, and even new political policies are pushing America's food supply near to its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important than ever. I invite you to create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4Patriot survival kits. I'm not talking about ordinary food. I'm talking good for 25 years, super survival food that's hand-packed right in a family-owned facility in the U.S., giving jobs to over 200 Americans. And the kits themselves, where the food is stored, they're compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, so you can stack them and store them very easily. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, dinners. You can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. It's super easy. You just add boiling water, you simmer it, and you serve it. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and use code Liz to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store. You will get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on orders over $97. Just go to 4patriots.com and use code Liz to get 10% off. That's 4patriots.com, code Liz. Start building your own stockpile today. So why is the FBI director, Christopher Wray, going to the World Economic Forum's Davos gathering? Why would that be? If you're sitting at your desk, if you're in a meeting and you work for the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the United States, what could possibly convince you that it would be appropriate for you to attend Klaus Schwab's club, his secret club? Like, we're not talking about the FBI conducting surveillance. We're not talking about the FBI investigating Klaus Schwab. We're not talking about anything like that. We're talking about endorsing the viewpoints of the people who are there just by your very presence. There's a reason why those two Republicans, Gallagher and Risch, backed out, because they knew just by attending, they were acting in a way that at the very, very least appears complicit in Klaus Schwab's ideology. And so they backed out. And yet, Christopher Wray is going. What's the history of the FBI? What's the legacy of the FBI? How was the FBI conceived? How does the FBI act to this day? They weaponize the power of the federal government over the American people based on political differences. So yeah, it should be a little troubling that the political ideology of the FBI director, reflected by his attendance at the World Economic Forum, is even remotely related to the ideology of Klaus Schwab. Because that means that the political ideology at the head of the FBI is in stark contrast to your ideology and mine, which means that we will be the first in the line of fire when the FBI is weaponized against the American citizens, which it has been over and over and over again in the course of the history of the FBI. All of this is leading up to talking about Biden's classified documents. Follow along here. So a couple questions that I have about Biden, about these classified documents, this scandal. Biden has stored classified documents, it seems, all over the country. He stored them at the University of Pennsylvania in the Penn Biden Center, which, by the way, received a ton of funding from the Chinese communists. A ton. There were classified documents that Biden had stored in his garage next to his Corvette. In fact, there's a video of Biden driving his Corvette with Jay Leno, and when he pulls the Corvette out of the garage, you can see the boxes in the background. You can see the boxes that I assume are filled with classified documents that Biden was just storing next to his Corvette in the garage.
I believe that we can own the 21st century market again by moving to electric vehicles. And by the way, they tell me, and I'm looking forward, if it's true, to driving one, that they're making an electric Corvette and go 200 miles an hour. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. So I'm excited about it.
Hunter Biden, by the way, did have access to that garage because he surprised his father by upgrading the engine on that very Corvette. And how would you surprise your father with an engine upgrade if you didn't have access to the garage where the Corvette was stored? We'll get into all that in a minute. Here are some questions that need to be asked and, more importantly, need to be answered about the Biden classified document scandal. Question number one, what prompted Biden's personal lawyers to conduct this search? Why were they in that closet in the Penn Biden Center? Why were they next to the Corvette in Biden's garage in his home in Delaware? What prompted them to be searching through these boxes, to be looking for and then finding classified documents? And then, once they found that first batch of classified documents, what prompted them to continue the search? Did they suspect that this was widespread? Did they suspect that there were more? Were they looking for certain documents of certain topics? We need a little bit more information about what was going on here. And as you recall, we're obviously going to be contrasting this whole scenario with the FBI's raid of Mar-a-Lago, of Trump's residence, in the name of Trump having classified documents. But as you remember, Trump's lawyer, when the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago, was sent to the end of the driveway. She wasn't even allowed to oversee the FBI searching Trump's private office. But Biden's lawyers, why were his lawyers even allowed to look at classified documents? Did they have top secret security clearance? I think not. The larger question here is Hunter Biden involved? Or perhaps that's a very obvious question and it should be phrased, how is Hunter Biden involved? Since he most certainly is involved here. Is this the result of an investigation into Joe Biden's involvement in Hunter Biden's shady and probably criminal business dealings? Maybe the most important question is, what impact will all of this have on the value of Corvettes? Because this ain't a good look for them. This coming from a woman whose husband owns a Camaro, not a Corvette. So where is the FBI here? Where's the FBI? Why haven't they raided the Biden residences the way that they raided Mar-a-Lago? And who knew about this in advance? These are just a couple of the questions that need to be asked before we get into untangling what's happening. Because what's happening is actually a story of political incest. And before we untangle the story of political incest, I want to address a narrative that's been going around, actually conservative circles, more even than Democrat narratives, and that question from conservatives is this classified document scandal of Biden's, is this how the left, the ruling class, the globalists, even the Democrat elected officials, the Democrat Party apparatus, is this how they're trying to take out Biden? Are they tired of Biden? Are they trying to replace him with someone else? Is this what they're doing to try to get rid of him? And before we answered that question, I told you at the beginning, I think no, but I got to tell you why I think no. It's not just a matter of me saying, nope, you're wrong. I got reasons here. Rush Limbaugh, on December 15th of 2020, this is 2 months before he died, predicted how he believed the left would take down Biden and who would be the one behind the takedown of Biden when that happened. He said, this is who will be behind it, and this is how it will happen when it happens. Take a listen to this.
Until, I'm going to tell you, folks, I think we're seeing enough information on the Bidens now to safely say that Biden will serve at the pleasure of Barack Obama. If Obama gives the green light to Democrats to take Biden out, there will be ample evidence that Biden has lied about his knowledge, his family was selling his name and office with his permission, and if that's in fact the case, then there's likely unreported money that will be found. The fake news media will temporarily become hard news media if the decision is made that Biden has to step down. Until that time, they will be covering for Biden. They'll be making excuses for Biden. They'll be ignoring all the negatives. You wait and see, and then watch what happens to their ratings when that happens.
Okay, so the question is Rush Limbaugh correct? Well, what kind of question is that? Of course he's correct. He is correct. Biden, of course, is controlled by the Obama apparatus. That's been obvious for some time. And what Rush Limbaugh described is this is exactly how Biden would be taken down if that happened, if the Democrat apparatus wanted him to be removed from his position of power. But conservatives now think that the Biden classified document scandal is that moment that Rush is describing. My question here, are we experiencing that moment? Is this, the Biden classified document scandal, is that the moment that Rush described? Now, I like Cozy Earth, and I think you will too, because I'm starting out the new year right with a great night's sleep, thanks to my Cozy Earth bedding. It's no wonder over 5,000 customers just like me have left 5-star reviews on their website. I gotta tell you, I hate swapping out bedding to suit the weather. It's a huge pain, it's a giant hassle. I don't like to sort my bedding into summer and winter and spring and fall. But Cozy Earth, one of the reasons I love Cozy Earth is it keeps me cozy and comfy year-round regardless of temperature. It's the softest, most luxurious, responsibly sourced bedding in the world. It's made from sustainable bamboo. It's no wonder top designers choose Cozy Earth. This is the reason. Their bedding is naturally temperature regulating, so you will sleep comfortably all year round. I know I do. So whether it's their luxury sheets, their loungewear, their pajamas, or their new bath collection, you will love shopping at Cozy Earth. Save 35% now on Cozy Earth. You have to hurry. This offer ends soon. Go to cozyearth.com/Liz35 and be sure to enter LIZ35 at checkout to save 35%. That's cozyearth.com/Liz35. So the question is the Biden classified document scandal this moment that Rush is describing when the Democrats try to take out Biden? The answer to that is no. This is not the moment. The way that I arrived at this conclusion, we have to journey back just a little bit. So Trump's residence at Mar-a-Lago, the FBI raids this residence, right? They claim it's over classified documents. They even tell the media, their lackeys in the media, that this is about nuclear weapons related information. We know that's not true. The reason the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago was first just as a political stunt. They want to arrest Trump. They want to charge him with violations of the Espionage Act because part of those provisions, or part of that statute, I should say, if someone mishandles classified information intentionally or otherwise, that person can be prohibited from running for public office. This is obviously the intent of the Democrats. That's what they want. They're so afraid of Trump, they never want him to actually be allowed to run for office again. They're trying to completely take him out. We now know that the documents that were contested or that Trump had at Mar-a-Lago, this is really just a dispute between the National Archives and Trump. Trump thought that he had ownership of these documents. The National Archives said the federal government had ownership of these documents. There's always a little push and pull when a president leaves office about who's the rightful owner of the documents, whether it's something personal, meaning it's the president's, whether it's something professional, meaning it's the government's. Who really cares about this kind of dispute, right? Probably just the National Archivist and the president. However, the National Archivist in this case was a very partisan individual. He's a partisan individual who hated Trump, didn't trust Trump, wanted to take Trump out. Okay, so that's a little bit of backstory, which is very important because Merrick Garland personally gave the thumbs up, the go-ahead for the FBI to raid Mar-a-Lago, knowing that this is unprecedented, knowing that this is to say it's on thin ice is the understatement of the year. This is one of the most dangerous, despicable, obviously partisan, probably illegal acts from the FBI in recent history. I mean, we talked at the beginning of the show about what the FBI did to threaten Martin Luther King Jr. to tell him to commit suicide. This is nasty, nasty stuff the FBI takes part in. So reporter Paul Sperry reports and says, when Merrick Garland, this isn't what he said. When Merrick Garland okayed the FBI raid, Paul Sperry says, who was Merrick Garland's counselor? Maggie Goodlander. Who is she? The wife of Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, who feared that Trump had Iran nuclear deal documents. If this is true, then it adds just another layer of political corruption. That if Trump had information about the Iran nuclear deal that contradicted the Biden administration's soft and dangerous policy, their appeasement towards Iran, this is not a national security risk. It's a political risk to the Biden administration, who weaponized the power of the federal government to use the FBI to raid Mar-a-Lago to try to take Trump out. Garland was advised to raise Trump by Maggie Goodlander, who's married to Biden's national security advisor. To call that a conflict of interest would be another understatement of the year. So Merrick Garland then appoints a special counsel. Fast forward to right now. Merrick Garland appoints a special counsel to investigate the Biden classified document scandal. The special counsel's name is Robert Hur. By the way, no FBI raid of any Biden residence. This is also from reporter Paul Sperry. Robert Hur, the special counsel supposedly supposed to investigate Biden, when he was a U.S. attorney in Maryland, his deputy was a man named Jonathan Lenzner. Jonathan Lenzner now works for the FBI as the chief of staff to FBI Director Christopher Wray. To say, you can see why I'm using the phrase political incest here. Oh, it gets worse. Lenzner's dad was a Clinton fixer. Lenzner's dad was one of the political operatives that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton used to stifle the so-called bimbo eruptions. Bill Clinton's adultery and infidelity and promiscuity. It gets even worse. Jonathan Lenzner, who is Christopher Wray's chief of staff, who used to be the assistant of Robert Hur, who is now the person supposed to investigate the Biden classified documents scandal. Jonathan Lenzner is married to the national editor of the Washington Post, Matea Gold. Both of them, according to reporter Paul Sperry, are Democrats. Gold is supposedly recused at the Washington Post from coverage of the FBI and the Department of Justice. But to call this the swamp somehow doesn't do justice to the level of conflicts of interest here. The special counsel to investigate Biden was assisted by a man who is now the right hand of Christopher Wray, who is the son of a Clinton fixer and married to a Washington Post hack. Do you feel that this is a fair system, a just system? I certainly do not. All of this leads me then to my conclusion. Is the Biden classified document scandal the way that the left is trying to take out Biden? Is this the moment that Rush Limbaugh discussed 2 years ago when he said that if or when Obama, who controls Biden, wants to take him out, this is what they'll do? The answer to that is no. If the Democrat apparatus wanted to take out Biden, they wouldn't do it softly and with nuance. They would do it loudly and obviously and quickly and savagely, because all of the information to do that is there. They would indict Hunter Biden, not just hide some investigation that will probably come to nothing. It would be full scale and inescapable, and the mainstream media sure as heck would be on board. Now, those in the mainstream media, there are some liberal pundits who are kind of softly criticizing Biden about his mishandling classified documents, but they're only doing this to protect their own reputations, because just 6 months ago, they came down so hard on President Trump for doing something far less serious. Since President Trump, by the way, was the former president who had unilateral authority to declassify any documents he wanted, and Biden never had that authority as vice president. The media and the left did everything that they possibly could in 2020 to get Biden into office. I don't even understand why they would want him out. They're accomplishing what they put him in office to do. But here's where I think conservatives and Republicans are getting it very, very wrong. The left stifled the Hunter Biden laptop story, right? The FBI in 2019, a year before the election, knew that the Hunter Biden laptop was real. It was authentic. It was genuine. It wasn't misinformation. It wasn't fake. They knew it was full of incriminating evidence. Evidence of criminal behavior, evidence of quid pro quo, evidence of collusion with foreign powers, evidence that he had sold access to his father, evidence that his father had potentially profited from foreign governments based on Hunter's shady business deals. This narrative that the laptop was Russian disinformation that came from the intel community, even those that signed the letter knew that that wasn't true. The left did everything they could. They harnessed big tech to stifle the Hunter Biden laptop story. We just saw the entire narrative of what went down on the back end of Twitter with the FBI when it came to the censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop story. There was complete silence about this from the mainstream media. They wanted no one to hear about it, no voter, because polls show that millions of Americans would have voted differently had they known. Millions of Americans who voted for Biden would not have voted for Biden had they known about the Hunter Biden laptop story, or had they believed that it was true if the mainstream media had portrayed it accurately. Which leaves us with the question, of course, is how would this have changed history had the left not made every effort possible to hide Hunter Biden and his laptop in order to protect Joe Biden, to get Joe Biden into the Oval Office by hook or by crook? This brings us to today. The opposite of taking Biden out is happening right now. The left is doing the opposite of what they would do if they were trying to damage Biden. They are still actually protecting Biden from Hunter's crimes, because this might be unpopular analysis, because you and I care deeply about hypocrisy. We don't like when the Democrats use one set of rules for us and one set of rules for other people, and that's valid. That's a properly ordered feeling that we have. But does the average voter in our country care about hypocrisy when it comes to classified documents being stored at private residences? No. People don't care about classified document hypocrisy. That's something political nerds care about. That's not something that the average voter cares about. So we ask the question then, well, what's behind this search? This is the original question I asked at the top of the show. Why did Biden's private lawyers start searching his residence? What prompted them to go to the Penn Biden Center first and then his Delaware home? The answer to this is most likely that they received, most likely, a subpoena from an investigation into Hunter Biden. And in the course of answering that subpoena, probably for documents that had to be searched for, they came across classified documents, first at the Penn Biden Center and then at Biden's private residence in Delaware. Searches for Hunter-related documents are the most likely reason why Biden's private lawyers were searching through these stored boxes of documents to find the paper trail, to uncover the corruption. Now, is Biden going to face an Espionage Act indictment for mishandling classified information? No, he's not. Is Biden going to face accountability, or not Biden, is Hunter going to face accountability for endangering national security, selling access to his father, all of that corruption, profiting off of his dad? No. What's happening right now with the Biden classified document scandal, this is not about taking Biden out. This is still protection of Biden. It's the same thing that we saw 2 years ago, 3 years ago. This is the same behavior from a deep state still hard at work, whether that's Democratic politicians, whether that's pundits, former intel community people who are kind of dismissing it and belittling it, whether it's the mainstream media that's just calling it an accident. They're covering this in the way that they're covering it, only to cover up the reason that the classified documents were found in the first place, which is to protect Hunter Biden, to protect Hunter Biden in order to protect Joe Biden as president. We are not experiencing the moment that Rush Limbaugh predicted. So the last thing to cover here is, then what can we do? What can we do? If Joe Biden's not going to face any indictment or accountability for mishandling classified documents, Hunter Biden's not going to face accountability for all the crimes that he committed, for which we have proof on his laptop, that's depressing. That's really demoralizing. What can we do? And the answer to that is we can take back our institutions, or we can abolish the ones that have been weaponized against us, the ones that are so corrupt that they treat Democrats in one way and Republicans in another. Now, I'm not talking about the media. The media is free to do what they want, whether they're honest or dishonest, whether they have integrity or whether they're lying hacks. I'm talking about the FBI. I'm talking about an FBI that treats Trump differently than they treat Biden, that treats Hunter differently than Don Jr. or any other child of any other president. And the way that we can abolish institutions of the administrative state, which are corrupt and have been harnessed to target people whose political views contradict the radical leftist political ideology, we can first expose corruptions like this in order to motivate our fellow Americans that have fire in their belly and a desire to serve our country to go to Congress and abolish the administrative state and elect a chief executive with the courage to gut it from that branch. It's not an easy fix. I can't sit here and say, oh, as soon as we get the readout from Hunter Biden's laptop that we're going to be able to indict Hunter, he's going to be convicted, and the Biden regime is going to come falling down. That's not going to happen realistically. But there is a way to fix this if we play the long game. And we have to play the long game because the left played the long game to get us where we are today, and now we have to unravel it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button below, and ring the bell to make sure you never miss a video.